Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Welcome to another day of Mixed Media Mayhem. This is always a fun day of the week. On Fridays, we have a new layout. Today we are not lifting. We are using a recipe type challenge to have a stencil, torn paper, and a sketch. And this is the sketch that I'm using. It is from justcreateandscrap.wordpress.com. And so I thought that is the sketch I chose. You can choose... we were able to choose any sketch we wanted. So we're not all working from the same sketch. We are working from the same idea of using a stencil. So here's my stencil. That was the sketch I'm using, and I am going to tear some paper. So I'm using this oxide ink in fossilized amber, and I'm using a really old Heidi Swapp zigzag or chevron stencil in a 12 by 12. And I have been getting more use out of my Heidi Swapp stencils now than I ever have in the, 5, 6, 7, 8 years that I've had them. I've had them for ages, and I'm so happy to be putting them to good use. These stencils that have the really long vertical or horizontal lines like this chevron, they're a little harder to use because you kind of have to hold everything down as you go across. There are no little cross pieces connecting any of those, and so they have a tendency to kind of lift up. So I just a note or a warning to you if you are someone who really wants a stencil that is similar to this. I don't know that this one is even available anymore. Like I said, it's very old. But if you're interested in something that's like this, or even if it's not a chevron, if it's got straight lines or diagonal lines, but it's got a very long run that doesn't have any connecting pieces in between, to be very careful, because those tend to just lift up. You can see there it lifts up a little bit. I'm not super worried about it, but I am taking note to kind of go along with the grain, if you will. And I'm using a brush rather than a foam applicator tool, because the brush does a better job of not lifting it up. I'm also not really concerned about getting 100% coverage. You can see some of the areas are a little darker than other areas and a little blotchy. That's okay. I don't mind that. That's what kind of what I was going for with this mixed media look. And in mixed media, I feel like that you kind of get that, you kind of expect that. So I'm just about finished with doing that, and then I'll tell you about the photos that are sitting on the right hand side over there. It is actually Noah at the aquarium again, or still a different aquarium layout, but the same aquarium, same day, and he is looking at this eel, and the eel came all the way out, and you can see his little hand, and the eel is like, I don't know. Obviously, it's in the water and in the behind the glass and everything, but it looks like it's like 5 or 6 inches from his hand, and it was putting on a big show for him, and so I wanted to go ahead and document that. And I thought this color of paper, or the ink, worked well because it kind of pulls the color of the kelp out and the color of the eel. So there I did my torn edge, and it is actually torn, as you saw there. I just used my ruler to make sure it was straight. So torn edge doesn't necessarily have to mean that it is wonky, or that there is like, that it doesn't stay straight or anything like that. So this works, and you can tell when you see it up close in person that it is a torn edge, because it's got that kind of frayed look to it versus that clean cut. So I'm really liking the way that it's looking so far. And now that I've got my photos cut out, I pulled out the 49th and Market stitched stamps. These are, I don't think they're available anymore, but there are a lot of companies that carry stitch stamps. And actually, I would have preferred to use my sewing machine on here, but again, my sewing machine is still out of commission at the moment. So this is replacing the actual physical stitching that I would have done on it. But that is always my first preference, because I like the added texture. But there are times when it is not feasible, when I'm away, or at a crop, or right now when my sewing machine is out of commission. So this is a good replacement. I believe Close to My Heart or Stampin' Up I'm pretty sure Close to My Heart. Anyway, I think they have some stitched stamps, and I think a couple other companies do as well. So if you just look up stitched stamps, you'll find something. If I will try to put a link for some stitched stamps down below for you, even though they may not be these ones. So I am also just using some Ranger Archival ink because I know I want it to be, I don't want it to be water reactive, and the Archival ink is not water reactive. And I have a reason that I don't want it to be water reactive is because I'm going to be doing some more mixed media with water on there, and I don't want that black to bleed. I want it to stay a nice solid black stitched line. I do want some messy lines because in the sketch, there is like a big mess of stitching going on, and so I am purposely figuring out where those photographs are going to go, and I want some extra stitching to go above and below to look like it kind of like there's a jumble of thread there basically. And then I do actually want the two panels offset from one another, mostly because I don't want my photos to be lined up. They wouldn't be directly across from each other, but I wanted to have them separate a bit more. So there's the name of the stamp set. It's called Gabby's Line, and the ink that I used was the fossilized amber. And now I've pulled out this other stamp set you see on the right hand side there. That is from Close to My Heart, and it is the Perfectly Imperfect stamp set. Yeah, Perfectly Imperfect Patterns is what that's called. The other one is called Gabby's Line Stitch Stamp Set. And I am just using my hand, and I'm using some Cove Blue ink from Catherine Pooler, as well as Tranquil ink. And these are both water reactive. They're dye-based inks. So if I add a little water on there, they are going to bleed a little bit or whatnot. You know, you're going to get some movement of the ink. So that is intentional as well, because I'm going to come in with my paintbrush here. I'm going to actually dab a little bit of ink onto the paintbrush and move some of the ink around on the paper, because I don't want it to look like they're perfectly stamped images. I want it to look a little messier than what the stamps actually showed. And I used 3 of those stamps out of that set. So I used 3 different sizes just to kind of give some different textures. If you don't have a stamp set like this, you can also use like the back of any of your acrylic stamps to kind of get a very similar look. If you wanted a little blotchy, just put it down in a little bit of a blotchy manner. Like you can lift some of the ink off of the acrylic, or the acrylic pad or whatever. So there it is finished. I keep saying acrylic. I should be saying photopolymer, because those are definitely photopolymer stamps. And then I'm using the Cove Blue ink to just finish off the entire outside of the page. And I'm liking the way that it's looking. So I'm going to cut a couple of pieces of paper to back my photos with, and I'm just going to add a little bit of the Tranquil ink all the way around the outside edge to kind of bring in more of that color. The more I put down, the darker it's going to get there. And I'm liking how that looks as well. Just kind of makes my photos pop off the page a bit more, but it brings in a little bit more of that kind of blue-gray color. And I think it looks really good. And using the Cove Blue, I just kind of tap perpendicular to the paper, so it has that lighter color, and then it finishes it off with a really dark outline. And now I'm pulling in another stamp set from Close to My Heart. I don't remember the name of this one, but it is an old one and it's not available, so my apologies for that. But like I said, a lot of stamps that you might have in your collection that are photopolymer, if you mount them on your use them backwards basically, so that the image is not on there, but it's just like an outline of a stamp, you can get a very similar effect. So I'm liking the way that this is looking. And while I finish off all my stamping, I will remind you that this is a hop that several of us play along with every Friday of the month. The last Friday of the month, we are still scrap lifting someone, but the other Fridays, we are using more of a recipe style or a grab 5, but maybe grab 3. We don't have a set number that we have to use, but one of the people on the team will choose a few items for each week, and then we go from there. And there is a Facebook group for Mixed Media Mayhem, and you can find that link down below as well, and the links to the other people playing along. I am going through some of my flair. These are from Dottie About Flair. If you are familiar with Adam over at Dottie About Flair, I got these from him. And I'm just pulling in these 2 that have navy blue. Because I have 2 photos, I'm just going with 2. I'm going with kind of like a diagonal look. I am also using these Photo Play dies to create my title. And I, again, am going to ink up some paper to have it match. Finding great uses for my ink and trying to use that up, not use up my ink, but trying to use them in ways that make them worth having. And this also, it takes the place of cardstock because I don't really use a lot of cardstock other than white and black. And so this is a great way to get the colors that I might need by just inking up a piece of paper in the areas that are going to be visible. So my title is going to be Really Cool, with an emphasis on the E-E-L in rEELly. I know it's really spelled R-E-A-L-L-Y, but I am spelling it E-E-L because there is an eel in the photo. So it's just a play on words, a play on the word, and to make it kind of interesting, a little bit tongue-in-cheek there. But I think that's kind of fun to do with your titles, and to mix them up like that and not be very, you don't want all your layouts to be serious. So this is a fun one. I did mount all of my papers that I inked up onto some yellow foam from Walmart. It is the craft foam that is adhesive on one side. And so I am using I'm using the darker color to highlight the word eel in rEELly. And I like the way that it ends up looking, so it's kind of fun. The biggest challenge was finding a font that would fit in the spot that I really wanted to have the title positioned. So I do want it just at the left-hand side of that left-hand photo. And so I'm just kind of playing around with that. It meant I had to move the flare a little bit more on to the photo than it was originally, but that's okay. It's not blocking anything. It's above Noah's head. The eel is coming out from the other side of the photograph, so it doesn't block anything in the photo that was necessary at all. I am going to make some messy thread nests for my flare to sit on, and I am just using some black thread. Could have used navy blue as well, but because my stitching is in black, or my stamped stitching is in black, that is why I chose to go ahead and go with the black thread, because I wanted it to look cohesive, like that was actually thread on the layout. And if I had used the blue, it would have been like I used 2 different types of thread, or 2 different colors of thread. I just use a little bit of glue to kind of hold it in one spot. And then I have a large or a thick piece of foam tape that I put underneath the flare to hold it down. And I don't see them coming off anytime soon. I did go through my bin of blue ephemera and stickers, and I pulled out a few pieces that I thought would work well, and used them to just kind of finish off my embellishment areas here. I am going to use this tag that says admit 1. I thought that worked well because it is an aquarium. You have to pay an admittance fee or entrance fee, and so I thought that was a good addition. I found another label that is kind of in that same color scheme, or the same color as that Tranquil blue ink. And I was thinking I would use that anchor, but I it looked good on camera sitting on top of the flare, the bottom flare, but it was so bulky when it was put on there because that piece is chipboard. By the time it's on top of the flare, which is already bulky, it was just so bulky, I just decided I didn't need it. It does look great on camera, but it was really just too much bulk. So I just used the Cove Blue ink to stamp my date. I will be adding a little bit of journaling below where I stamped the date, and that is pretty much it. So if you have questions or comments, you guys, go ahead and leave those down below. I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Don't forget to check out the other people playing along with Mixed Media Mayhem. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you are enjoying this series. And don't forget to go and join the Facebook group if you are not already a part of that Facebook group. Thanks again for watching, you guys. I'll see you next week with another mixed media piece, but I'll be back again tomorrow with another video. Thanks. Bye-bye.